My name is Zohran Mamdani, and for years my life had been a meticulous, calculated ascent toward power in this city. I am a well-known businessman and a sharp politician, a man who built a career on understanding the system's levers, not just its ideals. I had navigated the treacherous waters of real estate law and high finance, which gave me an intimate, almost nauseating familiarity with the ways in which wealth is created and, more often, stolen. My true commitment, the reason I ran for mayor despite already possessing a comfortable life, was not for personal wealth or glory, but because I could no longer stand by and watch this nation's elite treat the public as their easiest mark. The moral rot I saw at the top was systemic, a cancer eating away at the democratic promise of New York. I ran a campaign built on financial strength and a ruthless pragmatism, setting the stage for a confrontation with the ultimate corrupt leader, the figure who had weaponized this decay into a political movement, Donald J. Trump, the true enemy. However, was not local but national, even global. Donald J. Trump, the political archetype of unbridled financial power. Trump was the high-profile builder who viewed the entire country not as a public trust, but as a glittering trophy for unchecked, systematic greed. He was the figure who had perfected corruption, using a vast and expensive network of lawyers, accountants, and appraisers to manipulate financial reality itself, gaming the system long before he ever held office. I understood the architecture of his fraud, because I had seen its blueprints countless times in the world of high-stakes real estate. The only difference with Trump was the sheer breathtaking scale of his audacity. He had treated the financial world, and in turn the public treasury, as his own personal casino, and I was determined to be the house that finally demanded payment. The fight for the mayoralty was brutal, focused less on the usual campaign promises, and more on shifting the public narrative from mundane local issues to the existential national crisis of corruption. While my opponent focused on small-scale city issues like traffic and potholes, necessary, but ultimately distractions, I directed my campaign's powerful resources toward exposing the dark arts of financial scheming practiced by Trump, arguing that the city could never fix its own problems until the vast revenue leaks from tax fraud were plugged. I poured millions into advertising blitzes that used public records and deposition transcripts to showcase Trump's deceitful transactions, aiming to win the seat to gain the platform necessary for the ultimate expose. The mayor's office, I knew, held keys to the city's legal and investigative archives that no private citizen could access. Trump's public defenses were works of calculated deception, delivered through a blizzard of social media noise and rally hyperbole. He masterfully targeted his critics with grand, sweeping, fake promises of economic glory, vowing impossible deregulation and tax cuts, while simultaneously attacking the legal process as a politically motivated witch hunt. These promises were hollow, designed with a singular, cynical goal to grab the seat of power, or at least remain a kingmaker and use the political shield of the presidency to protect his own sprawling business interests and avoid the massive financial penalties he owed to New York State. His strategy was to discredit the truth faster than it could be reported, turning the very concept of objective reality into another partisan battlefield. Despite the overwhelming pressure from the establishment, who desired a quiet, more compliant local politician, my focus and my resources carried the day. I secured the office, an improbable democratic socialist victory that shook the financial capital of the world. The result was a stunning, defiant triumph. I, Zohran Mamdani, the businessman who understood how the rich steal, won the mayoral election. But the victory was only the prelude. My mission had now changed fundamentally, evolving from a political campaign to a cold, systematic confrontation. The fight for the city had become the fight against the nation's greatest and most brazen financial fraud. I had promised accountability, and the time for delivery was at hand. My first act as mayor-elect was not a party or a victory lap. It was a public declaration of war. I organized a massive televised press conference in the cavernous, austere chambers of the municipal building. I flatly refused to spend a single dime of the city's development funds on celebration, denouncing the tradition of lavish inaugural balls. Instead, I stood before a projected exhibit that detailed, in dollar-by-dollar increments, how Trump's financial crimes, the taxes avoided, the loan fees manipulated, had cost the city hundreds of millions in lost revenue over years. The message to the city's financial elite was clear and uncompromising. I am here to confront the giants who take, and I will start with Trump, with the platform of the mayor's office, a position that granted me unprecedented access to city tax records, property assessments, and law enforcement capabilities. I moved swiftly to consolidate my investigative power. I began operating not in the shadows of backroom deals, but in the glaring light of public scrutiny, initiating a series of tense public legal battles with Trump's organization and their political allies. I directed the city's law department to coordinate closely with the state attorney general's office. My aim was chillingly simple: use the full weight of the city's legal tools to expose the unvarnished, documented core of their fraud. This was no longer about a political statement. It was about the rigorous, unforgiving pursuit of justice via paper trails. I utilized the full extent of my new office to expose the Trump organization's undeniable relief to run their businesses through deceit. I ordered a deep audit comparing every public tax filing with the corresponding loan application documents over a 10-year period. The results, which I then presented to the public, highlighted the systematic inflation of asset values for loans, gaining favorable, often impossibly low interest rates, and the simultaneous, massive deflation of those very values for tax assessments, directly robbing the city coffers. The entire apparatus of financial reporting was revealed to be flipped, intentionally designed to be a facilitator of grand fraud at the expense of New Yorkers, while Trump's allies and a handful of partisan media outlets attacked me for being a radical seeking political vengeance. I refused to allow the narrative to be hijacked. I knew my fight was essential because it went to the core of democratic equity. I established an independent investigative team, staffed not by political cronies, but by a small, dedicated group of top forensic accountants, ethical city lawyers, and seasoned real estate analysts. This team, operating out of a secure, windowless room, began their methodical investigation into the public records of Trump's properties within the city limits. Armed with full subpoena power and my unwavering political shield, the work was painstaking, requiring endless nights of meticulous legal research and forensic auditing. We dug through public expenditure reports, cross-referencing Trump's loan documents, appraisal reports, and the tax filings he submitted to the city's Department of Finance. Every discrepancy, every subjective valuation, every change in declared square footage was cataloged and analyzed. We were looking for the definitive, unassailable pattern, the unmistakable signature of corruption that tied his grotesquely inflated net worth to the precise taxes he refused to pay. The sheer volume of manipulated documents suggested an operation of almost military precision. The breakthrough came when we focused on the difference between the alleged values and the city's tax assessments on the commercial crown jewels, the Fifth Avenue Tower, the Wall Street Building, and the various golf courses. My team created a timeline that proved, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the act of inflating a value for a loan often preceded the act of deflating the value for tax purposes by only a matter of months, demonstrating clear intent. This paper trail confirmed our greatest fear, but also our most solid piece of evidence. The fraud was not an anomaly. It was a core, non-negotiable function of his business model. We secured definitive, irrefutable evidence, a massive set of tax filings and internal memos showing that the asset value inflation for loans and the subsequent tax deflation was a coordinated, deliberate scheme over years, directly defrauding municipal revenue streams. The documents included internal emails where Trump Organization executives debated which valuation to use for which purpose, one for the bankers, another for the city's tax assessors. We had proof of criminal conspiracy and massive civil fraud, signed and executed by the principals of the Trump Organization, including the very executives who had publicly denied any wrongdoing. I took the entire, comprehensive dossier, the chronological loan valuations, the city tax assessments, the internal financial contradictions, and the legal analysis of lost revenue, directly to the federal prosecutor's office, the state attorney general, and the largest, most respected investigative newsroom in the state. The handover was a dramatic, heavily guarded event. I spoke not as a self-interested politician seeking a headline, but as a mayor demanding justice for his community that had been systematically and financially victimized by the very people who claimed to be its builders. The public reaction was instantaneous and devastating, a political earthquake that reverberated nationwide. The news reports, fueled by my detailed, irrefutable evidence, obliterated Trump's carefully crafted public image as a savvy billionaire. His phony promises were replaced by front-page images of police raiding properties and federal agents freezing his corporate assets. The political and financial empire he had built on manipulation and deceit collapsed with shocking speed under the sheer, undeniable weight of proven financial fraud. The final hammer blow was delivered by the courts, based heavily on the coordinated evidence from the city's legal team. Donald J. Trump and his organization were fined an historic, staggering sum for massive fraud, and were barred from doing business in the city for years. His downfall was a spectacle of humiliating public failure, a vindication for the rule of law. The civil penalties alone were enough to restore a significant portion of the city's lost tax revenue, a victory for every taxpayer. The ultimate conclusion was the city's restoration, proving that the system, when led by those with courage, can still work. As mayor, I didn't stop with Trump. I used the legal precedent established by his case to systematically dismantle other corrupt tax shelters, restored the recovered funds to the city's development budget, funding the universal child care program I had promised, and initiated the difficult, necessary process of rebuilding the public's trust. The pragmatic reformer had exposed the financial king of corruption, and for the first time in a generation, the city finally had a leader who fought to make the powerful pay what they owe.